Hello, greetings from India. I'm sorry not to be able to be with you in person, but I'm happy to have this opportunity to share some thoughts about integrating mobile devices into online language courses. I'm Bob Godwin-Jones. I'm a colleague of Catherine's at VCU, where I teach German. I'm going to be talking principally about my experience teaching intermediate German language courses online and also in a hybrid format. The picture you see is a placeholder that Catherine found because I guess the striking resemblance to me, or maybe it's because he's in a sidecar, which may represent how many folks might view mobile learning for online courses. And in fact, it's a good representation of the main thing that I'm going to be talking about, which is the advantages of creating what I call a mobile companion for your online course. Talk very briefly about why you would want to be concerned with the use of mobile devices by students taking your classes. And it's obvious that things have changed dramatically in terms of the capabilities of today's mobile devices. I'm talking about smartphones and tablets, but students also, of course, will bring laptops, which have even more functionality. We'll have those available to them. In the U.S., the vast majority of students these days do have smartphones, which they use both in class and out of class, as we know. And one of the main things to be concerned about, I think, is that we want to have the learning experience integrate into students' everyday real lives and present the opportunity to do learning on the fly. And that's what I'm going to be talking about primarily today. But I also wanted to just mention that there is an opportunity, and I'll show that briefly, for using mobile devices in class as something helpful and not just a distraction. And obviously there's the on-demand access to online tools and services, but one of the things that you can do for all devices, and these don't have to be necessarily the same on the same operating system, but you can use mobile devices in place of clickers, and I'll talk about that briefly. But principally, I want to talk about using mobile devices outside of class in support of an online class or a hybrid class or, for that matter, a face-to-face class. And obviously, there you have anytime, anywhere access. You have opportunities for place-based learning. There are built-in capabilities, of course, on smartphones and tablets for capturing images, sounds, and video. And these are things that can be important in terms of students creating projects that incorporate audio and video. That's one of the things that I think smartphones can provide that presents the opportunity for both individual projects and group projects. One of the things to keep in mind if you're designing a site for your class is the fact that if you incorporate mobile access, it's likely to improve accessibility. And so you want to keep in mind the principles of universal design. And I'll talk about that in a minute in terms of adjusting the display of the materials to the screen that the student is currently using. If you're designing a online language class, how mobile devices may be incorporated depends on the materials that you're using, the structure that you're using. If you're using a language, a learning management system such as Blackboard, Desire to Learn, Moodle, there may be mobile devices already available, mobile versions rather of the content already available. Some of those are good, some of them are not so good. This is true as well for textbook publishers. So if you're using, for example, Pearson's My Language Labs Some of the content will be available on mobile devices. Some of it will not, principally because Pearson's uses Flash for some of the content. The same is true if you're using Vista super sites, which uses Java. So Java based content is not going to be available on the mobile device as well. And so I think that the bottom line there is to see what the mobile version of that content looks like, and how useful and usable is it for your students. The other thing, a couple of other things that in terms of mobile, making available useful content for the students who are accessing the sites with mobile devices is obviously one of the things is to gather language learning mobile apps and suggest those to the students. That's one of the things that I tend to do on a regular basis. You can also create your own apps. You can package content in a mobile-friendly format such as ebooks, and I'll talk about those options briefly. App curation, I think, is something that that one can do, but it's even better to have the students suggest mobile apps that they have found and that they have found to be useful. One of the things that I do for my classes is create a Google Doc that allows them to make those suggestions, which are then shared with the rest of the class. If you want to create your own mobile app, how that's done and how difficult it is depends on how you go about it. If you want to make something that's available across the main mobile operating systems, which these days are iOS for Apple devices and for Google-based operating systems, that's Android. You would have to create separate apps for both of those platforms, which is not an easy thing to do. I wrote a column recently about app creation for language learning and technology, which is, you'll find a link to that at the end of this presentation. And in that column, I suggest that the best approach is to create what's called a web app, which will work on all devices. And I'll talk about that with a specific example in a minute. If you're thinking about formatting content for mobile devices, one of the things that makes that content very usable on small screens is to format it as an ebook using the EPUB specification. An alternative to EPUB, the EPUB format, is to use the format that Apple uses for its iBooks apps, which is slightly different than the standard EPUB. One of the disadvantages of using a tool like iBooks Author is that the created content will only be usable on Apple devices, whereas if you use the standard EPUB format, that will be available across platforms. So I'm going to talk about one possibility in terms of helping students work with course materials from mobile devices. And whether this is useful or not, it depends entirely on the structure of your course and whether, in fact, there is a very good already available mobile version of the content. If you're using a particular LMS, like, for example, Canvas, which has a good mobile version of its content as opposed to Blackboard, which is what we use at VCU, and the mobile version, the mobile app for Blackboard is not nearly as good. So what I've done for my classes is to create what I call a course companion or mobile companion. And what this does is it makes available not all the content for the course. The course is basically taught, in fact, through the LMS, in our case Blackboard, but it makes available tools and services that make sense to have available for mobile devices, and I'll talk about that more specifically. One of the advantages to creating such a web page or web app is that you can put it outside of the LMS, and so that there's no need for students to log in. And the first time that the students access that page, they can save it as an icon on their home screen on their device, whether it's a smartphone or a tablet. And then in the future, they would just click on that icon and it would bring up the page. So I'm going to be showing you this mobile companion, which was created 2 years ago initially for a hybrid delivered language class, and I was lucky enough for this class to have iPads available through VCU, but in creating the page I didn't want to make it Apple iOS specific, and so the resources, the mobile links there are system agnostic, so they would work on, for example, Android devices as well. This mobile companion is simply an HTML page which uses adaptive design to format the content for mobile devices so that it's touch friendly, and I'll show you how that works. This is not something complicated to create. In fact, I didn't create the HTML. I borrowed that from a template that Apple makes freely available, and you can borrow it from me as well. And how that works is basically it supplies an alternative style sheet that kicks in when the page is viewed on a smaller screen. The idea for the mobile companion is that it changes as the semester progresses, so every 2 weeks there would be a new version of the mobile companion. They can always go back and view older versions, but it keeps up with what we're doing in class, and so the current assignments will always be available. And it links in things that I have judged would be the most useful for students accessing material on mobile devices. So I'll show you that, and I'll talk about this use of iframes in showing this content. Iframes is basically a way to bring in an external website into a single HTML page so that all the content is viewed together on a single page. So I'm going to link out here to the web browser and show you what this course companion looked at the beginning of the semester, and you can see that this is just a web page. I'll show you the URL, but I'll show that to you at the end as well, so that if you want to take a look at that, you can. It provides a link, as you can see, to the schedule so students can see what the assignments are. Provides a link to the readings that we're working with in class. Sometimes these are readings, sometimes they're media-based lessons, films or audio. It starts with that, but mostly they start with text. There's access to audio and video that we're working with. Grammar as appropriate. There's vocabulary lists, flashcards, language access to tutorials on language learning tools, and other resources. When this page is viewed on a mobile device or on a smaller screen, it will automatically adjust to the screen size and make the links touch friendly, so you have more surface here to click on, or to touch actually, in the case of a smartphone, but the content there is all the same, and this is what it looks like on a desktop browser. At the top, you'll see that these are links that were added, in fact, towards the end of that 2 weeks before an exam. These are review exercises, and this is what I was talking about earlier in terms of using Google Docs as a kind of clicker. And so I would have the students in class use their mobile devices to call up the course companion, and then they could click on each of these exercises. And as I say, these are reviews before the test. And one of the advantages of Google Forms, which is being used here, is that you can use standard question formats like true, false, multiple choice, a short answer, but you can also have longer answers. And then the idea is the students will complete each of those review exercises, and then I will use the Google Forms response page to show those through a projector in class, and then we'll talk about the answers and talk about what's right and what's wrong, and what this is both in terms of reviewing content and reviewing grammar and vocabulary before the exam. But the main thing use of this course companion is to access the materials outside of class, and so the students have access to the readings. And I've supplemented the textbook for this course with readings that I've created from open online materials from a variety of sources. One of the topics that we dealt with in this class, this is a fourth semester German class, is fast food in Germany. And so I created some lessons on fast food, as well as one on a particular, particularly popular fast food in Germany, doner kebab. And so these are open resources that I've created that are shareable for this class. And as you could see, they're available in two formats: a web format, which is what you're seeing here, or as an ebook. And basically the same content, but there's some differences. Here in the web version, you'll see that items are annotated, both in terms of vocabulary and in terms of, in some cases, there are grammar or cultural notes that are included. There's a preview on the left-hand side of new vocabulary, as well as what's presented in terms of grammar. And so the students can work through it in that way. There, in this particular lesson, as you can see up here, in the navigation, there are 4 pages. And as the students go through the content, there are questions to answer in a variety of formats. This is an ordering question. And when the students complete the 4 pages and answer the questions, they submit that, and the score then is put into Blackboard, even though the content was viewed outside of Blackboard. So go back here to the course companion page, and you can see that same content is available as an ebook, and this is an EPUB version. And so if I click on that, it's going to call up the default e-reader on the device that I'm using. Because I'm using a Mac, it knows to bring up iBooks, which is the default also on iPhones and iPads. On other devices, it will ask if there is an e-reader installed, and ask you to identify what you'd like to use to view the content. So this is an EPUB, which is basically just HTML, which is packaged in a different way. And you see that the content is there. The ability to gloss is there as well. And one of the nice things about the current version of iBooks, of EPUB, is that in addition to that basic functionality, you can also incorporate interactivity. So that there's also the questions there are also available in this format, and so the quiz questions that you saw on the web can also be viewed here. So going back, I'm going to click out of iBooks here and go back to the course companion page. One of the things I mentioned earlier was using iframes to display the content within this page, which makes it easier in terms of navigation on a mobile devices. So I'm going to show you how that works with the flashcard. This is a very simple web app that I developed for allowing the students to practice with the vocabulary. And this uses the basic functionality that you'll find in web apps, in flashcard, online flashcard apps. It also, however, includes the possibility of students editing the list. So if there are words that they don't need to be practicing, they can eliminate those. Or if they want to add additional words, they can do that as well. So maybe they're not familiar with the word frosch, which is important for this particular story. So they can add that, and then up here they can load that into the flashcard program, and now you can see that there are 22 cards rather than just 21, and there's the word that we just added. Students can also export that if they want to put the words, the list, into, for example, a online flashcard program that they're using, like Anki or Flashcard Exchange, or whatever it might be. They can do that. One of the things that I've tried to do at the intermediate level and lower levels, in fact, as well, is not only work on the target language, but work on language learning online, and offer suggestions for finding resources online and for using resources online. So one of the things that I always include in all my classes is a page like this, which offers links to things like flashcards, dictionaries, spell checkers, open access grammar sites, variety of ways for students to practice their German. For many of those, there will be concrete tutorials that either I've put together or that I have the students look at from other sources. This one, for example, is a resource tutorial developed by the Open University in the UK for working with Google Translate. And so this offers activities for working, in fact, specifically with German, with examples of how best to use Google Translate. And this is something that I think is important, whether we're teaching face-to-face classes, but particularly if you're teaching online classes, is having the students learn about online tools for language learning. There are other links here, but I won't go into those. If you're interested, you can look at the grammar tutorials. These are ones that I've created here as well, and they're available to the students both in terms of the content that we're working on at that time. And so for this particular unit, the subjunctive verbs are what's covered, but I also make available those grammar tutorials as as remedial resources, or just for brush up, that students can look at previous tutorials if they're weak on, for example, the case system or irregular verbs, those kinds of things. So I'm going to click out of this course companion and go back to the presentation. So let me get back to where I was here. And just a few brief takeaways from my experience teaching intermediate German, both online and as hybrid courses. There are a lot of different options for designing online courses, and what works for you will depend on the resources that you have available, very much on your local context. And that's the place to start. What resources are available locally? What does the learning management system, if you're using one, provide? What a colleague, the expertise of colleagues in your department provide? What models might be available? But one of the things that I would like to stress is that whatever approach you're using, it's going to involve a lot of time and effort, much more so than teaching a face-to-face class. It's easy to slap something together and call it an online course, but having something that's really good is really difficult. It's not only difficult and time-consuming to design, the same is true of teaching a course. Interactivity is really an essential part of any online language course. You want to provide students with opportunity for using the language actively, and that's something that takes time on your part and time on the student's part as well. In my experience teaching German, intermediate German online, I've had good results, but I've also and very good student evaluations. But I've also found that the work involved is much greater than it has been for face-to-face classes, and it's something to keep in mind and not caution you not to undertake lightly the decision to create an online language learning class. Here are some mobile-friendly tools and services that I've used. In terms of video conferencing, I've used both Skype and Google Hangouts. When I teach this course, German 202, as a hybrid course, which I've been doing recently during the regular academic year. In the summer, I usually teach it as a completely online class. We do Skype when it's a hybrid class. We do Skype sessions with small groups. I usually meet with students for half an hour in small groups of 3 to 4 students at least once a week throughout the semester. And both Skype and Google Hangouts work well on mobile devices. The students, I also have the students create a learning journal, and there are a variety of tools available for doing that, which are also mobile friendly. WordPress, for example, has a WordPress mobile app. Google Docs works well on mobile devices. There are personal journals that you can use for that purpose as well, that will work on both mobile and desktop browsers. In terms of media creation, that's one of the things that I have students do in online and hybrid classes, is to create projects using the built-in capabilities of their smartphone or tablet to create videos, for example, just very short video clips that use vocabulary or structures or content that we're working with, and upload those and share those. On the iPad, one of the things that's very easy to do is, once you've created a video, there's an option to upload to YouTube. This option is available not only on iPad but other devices and desktop browsers as well, and other audio and video editors usually has that option of uploading to YouTube, which is an easy way for the students to share content. And for this particular class, I had individual assignments for projects that were media-based, but also small group projects as well. Obviously, flashcards, something that students tend to like to use a lot. These are some that have good either mobile apps or that can be viewed on mobile browsers and work well there. Most of these, like Anki, which is a very good flashcard program, have specific apps, mobile apps that synchronize with on the cloud, so that if you're working on the flashcards online on a desktop web browser, it will sync it up with whatever you've done on your mobile device, which is really great. If you're more ambitious in terms of wanting to create your own content, there's a possibility for creating your own mobile game. There are lots of examples of those created principally with the Eris platform. I saw that, in fact, Terry Nelson at CALICO this year is going to be doing a presentation on a game that she created with Eris involving history of Paris. It's a platform that makes it easy to create place-based interactive mobile games. tool that I use for creating the content that I showed you for example, the fast food lessons is SoftChalk. You see this the initials LTI stands for Learning Tools Interoperability. If a tool has that capability, what that means is that if a student is calling up the content outside of a learning management, and as you can see, VoiceThread has this LTI capability as well, and there's some kind of assessment built in, or you just want to keep track of whether the student has worked with the content, LTI actually will allow that content, that the results of interacting with that content, whether it just be whether the student has actually viewed it or whether there's actually a score attached to assessments, will allow that information to be sent to the gradebook in the learning management system that you're using. And all learning management systems today support LTI. So if you're looking for a tool where that's, if it's important to you to have that information recorded into the gradebook, you might want to look for a tool that's LTI compliant. One of the things that's also nice about SoftChalk, which by the way is a commercial product, costs about $500, so it's something that you'd want to think about purchasing for a department, is that it will automatically format the content as an ebook in the EPUB format so that it's available across platforms. I'm going to just finish up here with some links if you're interested in creating your own open source content specifically for German. These are some of the places you can look for ideas, look for content to link in that's already created. For example, from the University of Texas site, there's a grammar set of tutorials and exercises that I've linked to. There are other sites that offer lots of content for German. And if you're creating your own content, what you want to do is look for resources that are copyright free or that allow you to use that content in creating your own resources available for your students. If you're interested in looking at the mobile companion, that's the link that you see there. I write a regular column on emerging technologies for language learning and technology. Some of those columns might be of interest to you. I've put in a link to that. If you have questions, please feel free to send me an email and see my email address, rgjones@vcu.edu. I hope you have a wonderful workshop and a wonderful Calico experience. Bye.